Hello again, everybody. This is Craig Evans of Autism Hangout, and thank you for tuning into another in our Ask Dr. Tony series, where you get a chance to ask questions of everybody's favorite Autism and Asperger's expert, Dr. Tony Attwood. Welcome, Dr. Tony. It's really nice to have you back.
Thanks, Craig, and also for your very positive comments. That's lovely.
Well, they are well deserved, I'd like to add too. All right, we have 5 questions, so we'll just jump right into it. The first one is asked by Supir, who's a member of Autism Hangout, and Supir has 2 children already that are on the spectrum. She has a 3rd child, and she's concerned about vaccinations, and she asks, would Dr. Tony recommend vaccinating children, especially in light of the current debate about vaccines?
Well, first of all, a statement that I'm not really an expert on immunology. What I would suggest is that yes, it is appropriate for that child to be vaccinated, but a few things that I would recommend. The first is to check that your son is well before he has the vaccine. In other words, his immune system is not compromised by fighting a pre-existing infection. After the immunization, for at least 48 hours, watch him very carefully, regularly checking his temperature, perhaps every hour or 2. If there is a rapid rise in temperature, then obviously take him to a physician. But the child needs to be monitored very carefully, but overall I would say yes, go ahead.
Okay. And the second question is posed by Elena Scott, a member of Autism Hangout. She said, what are the side effects of dated vaccines, and would dated vaccines have a possible link to autism?
A very interesting question, but it's one I find very difficult to answer, as I'm not an expert in this area. So I'd like to know what the answer is, but I'm afraid I can't give you one.
Okay. All right, the next question is posed by Nina, and Nina is also a member of Autism Hangout, and she has an 11-year-old son with ASD, and like most kids who are trying to be mainstreamed, Nina is lamenting the fact that the son happens to be in a class with 20 other students, and there's only 2 other aides in the class, and she fears for her son that he's falling through the cracks, as many parents feel, and so she's asking, should I remove him from school and homeschool him, thereby cutting him off from any social contact with other school children, or should I possibly hold him back a year hoping for a change in the classroom situation? What's your opinion on these things?
I'd like to spend an hour about this topic. Whatever decision is made, first of all, I do strongly recommend that the child himself is involved in the actual decision making. I would normally have a large sheet of paper with homeschooling on one section and stepping back a year on the other, and positives and negatives of each, to go through with the child what he and the family and perhaps education think are the advantages and disadvantages of each option. And he needs to be part of the decision making for his own integrity and support of whatever decision. Now, when you look at homeschooling, I know a number of children who have been homeschooled, many of whom have had very beneficial results in terms of preventing the psychological scarring that will occur, low self-esteem, almost a feeling of paranoia that people are against me, will occur in those circumstances. And it's really important that the person does socialise, but it doesn't have to be with someone born 6 months either side of their birth. So as long as with homeschooling, and maybe an opportunity to be with and relate to people, but not necessarily being agents. And the main thing is that he contacts and relates to people. It's a positive experience rather than a negative experience. Now, to a certain extent, keeping him back a year may make him feel that people think I'm stupid, that I've been held back because I'm not smart enough, and he may not like that idea. And it may be that the same problems are repeated in that year. So at this stage, I was stuck between the devil and the deep blue sea. It's hard to know what options would be best, but please go through them with the child. On balance, one decision is probably going to be made, but to make sure that that is used positively.
Yeah, and that the child himself is involved in that major decision. Excellent. This next question is a little disturbing, but it's not the first time this situation has occurred. This was written into Autism Hangout by Abby, and Abby says that I'm an Aspie teen, and I may have a fully developed female body, but I have no understanding of flirtation or nonverbal sexual cues. So she feels that she has been susceptible not only to harassment, but even date rape. And now she's claiming that I have on numerous occasions been taken sexual advantage of, and I find myself touching myself excessively. And she'd like to know, is that normal for an Aspie to do so after being sexually assaulted? If it is, how can she stop this? And can she learn any other nonverbal sexual cues that will help her in the future?
Okay, a very worrying situation. I have a few thoughts on this. If we start off with the dating and what we call the dating game, it's a very complex activity that usually teenagers go through in a group of friends, gradually moving along the continuum of intimacy from meeting somebody you like right through to a whole range of sexual activities. And the person gradually moves along that period, that time zone, and also range of activities over a number of years with support from their peers. Girls in particular tend to go out with other girls, and they have an inbuilt radar system or knowledge system of good guys and bad guys. There's always friends around to assist you in case there's an emergency, and so the person may feel safe, and when they know that person, gradually have a one-to-one relationship. Now, for girls with Asperger's syndrome, they often don't have that information. I remember a very powerful comment from Leanne Holiday-Willie that what she does is that when she meets someone new, she has a core of neurotypical friends who are good at people judgments. So if you meet someone who likes you and you like them, the recommendation is you introduce them either to a family member or a friend or someone you trust who gets to know them to give you advice as to whether they are a reputable person or not. Clearly, along that dimension of what you do in the relationship is a decision between the two of you, but it is very important to progress at a rate that you feel comfortable with. And it's important that you go to places where there are lots of other people around and that are relatively safe. Now, when someone has been sexually abused, there will obviously be a very significant effect on that person's psyche, which can be expressed in a variety of ways. What Gabby mentions is that she may excessively touch herself, and this may be one of the reactions from being sexually assaulted. I do recommend that Gabby talks to someone with regard to her sexual experiences, some form of counselling with someone she trusts. Now, I don't know where Gabby lives. There may be someone who can help her. If she does find someone, they may not know about Asperger's syndrome, in which case they need to read the relevant literature and information to know her reaction. Often the person with Asperger's can explain events in a very cool way, which other people find really quite odd. But the person with Asperger's is giving you information without necessarily the emotion that can be quite confusing for a neurotypical counsellor. But I am very concerned that Gabby will be worried that this could happen again, and she really does need guidance not only in who would make a good friend, but also aspects of sexuality. I recommend the work of my friend and colleague Dr. Isabel Pino, who works in this area. And this may seem strange, but I'm just going to go off camera for a second and get from the back here a book that has actually been written by my wife, Sarah Attwood, and it's called Making Sense of Sex, and it's designed for teenagers with Asperger's syndrome to understand aspects of sexuality and relationships. It's published by Jessica Kingsley Publishers, and it's a forthright guide to puberty, sex and relationships for people with Asperger's syndrome. So first of all, I would recommend this book.
Dr. Tony, thank you again for your candid comments and your observations. It's always a pleasure to hear your wisdom.
Thank you, Craig. It's been created from many years of experience.
And thank you, Autism Hangout listeners. We'll be back again soon with another installment in the Ask Dr. Tony series. Good day.